She told him to step his game up, so he erased her lifestyle in 72 hours. Now she's learning the hard way. 30 years ago, a man stood at a crossroads, staring through the dim glow of a red light. His heart sank as he watched the woman he loved, the one he dreamed of marrying, locked in a passionate moment with another man in a car. 4 years of devotion, plans for a future together, crumbled in that fleeting glance. But instead of confrontation, instead of pleading or fighting, he made a choice that would echo through decades. He vanished. No drama, no tearful arguments, just a clean, quiet exit. He told her he was visiting his brother in another state, a vague truth she could never trace. She still doesn't know where he lives. 3 marriages, 3 divorces, and a trail of betrayal later, she's still searching for stability. He, meanwhile, built a life of peace, married happily for 22 years, untouched by her chaos. His story is a testament to a simple truth. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. That lesson, sharp and unyielding, brings us to another story, one closer to our time. I'm 34, a man who thought he'd found something real with Brianna, my girlfriend of 3 years. She was magnetic, the kind of woman who turned heads wherever she went. But one night, her words cut deeper than any blade. I can't help it if other men find me irresistible, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. Maybe you should step your game up. Those words lingered, not as a challenge, but as a revelation. She handed her number to a stranger at a bar right in front of me, as if I were invisible. Her friends watched, some embarrassed, others smirking. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply said, "You're right," grabbed my jacket and walked out into the night. She called after me, confused, but I was already gone. She wanted me to step my game up, and so I did, just not in the way she expected. The next morning, clarity hit like a sunrise after a storm. Brianna's words weren't just a taunt. They were a mirror, reflecting a truth I'd ignored for too long. I was carrying her lifestyle, funding her world, while she treated me like an afterthought. My apartment, my lease, my money, everything she relied on was tied to me. She'd moved in 18 months ago, dodging the lease paperwork, claiming it was too much hassle. That was her first mistake, but kicking her out wasn't simple. Tenant rights meant she had 30 days to leave, legally. So, I got creative. I started dismantling the life I'd built for her piece by piece. First, her car. The lease was in her name, but I'd been covering the payments for a year because she claimed money was tight. I called the leasing company and stopped the payments cold. They'd be reaching out to her now. Next, her phone, tied to my family plan to save her money. I removed her line, effective in 3 days. Her car insurance, listed under my policy as a driver, gone. The credit card she used as an authorized user for emergencies, canceled. Her gym membership, tied to my family plan, terminated. Each call was a step toward freedom, a reclaiming of my worth. I wrote her a letter, professional and calm, stating our relationship was over and she had 30 days to find a new place. I left it on the kitchen counter, where she'd see it when she stumbled home from her night out. That evening, Brianna walked in, still in her red dress from the bar, looking worn and hungover. She picked up the letter, her eyes scanning the words. Confusion turned to anger, then panic, then back to fury. She waved the paper at me, her voice sharp. "What is this?" I stayed calm, my voice steady. "It's a 30-day notice to vacate, and I'm done paying for your life." Her face twisted, disbelief warring with reality. "You can't be serious." But I was. I told her she'd made it clear other men were more interesting, that I wasn't enough. If that's what she believed, she could live her irresistible life on her own terms. She tried her credit cards for dinner delivery. Declined. Both of them. The calls started then, 23 in a single day, each one more desperate. "My cards aren't working," she said, her voice trembling. "That's because you're not on my accounts anymore," I replied. "Figure it out, Brianna. Use your own money." She hung up, only to call back, her voice now a mix of anger and fear. I let it go to voicemail. Reality was setting in, and it was cold. By Monday, the consequences hit harder. The leasing company called her about the car payment, threatening repossession if she didn't pay by Wednesday. She stormed over, frantic. "You know I don't have that kind of money saved," she cried. I shrugged. "That's a budgeting problem, Brianna, not my problem." She scrambled, borrowing from her friend Chloe to cover the payment, but Chloe made it clear it was a one-time deal. Tuesday, her phone went dead, disconnected from my plan. She called from Chloe's phone, her voice cracking. "How am I supposed to get my own service without money?" I didn't waver. "You're irresistible, right? Maybe one of your admirers can help." By Wednesday, she showed up at my office, desperate and disheveled, begging in the lobby. "I can't afford this on my own," she pleaded. "You know that." I looked at her, the woman I'd once loved, and felt nothing but resolve. "You told me to step my game up, Brianna. This is what it looks like." She tried to backtrack, claiming she was drunk, that she didn't mean it. But her words that night were honest, raw, and cutting. She'd shown me who she was, and I believed her. A week later, Brianna was crashing on Chloe's couch, burning through her savings to keep up her lifestyle. The gym membership cancellation hit her hard. She lived for those daily visits, more to be seen than to work out. Chloe called me, exasperated. "She's driving me crazy, Albert. She won't look for a place. She just wants to fix things with you." I was unmoved. "She told me what she thought of me, Chloe. I'm not destroying her life. I'm just not paying for it anymore. Even Brianna's mother called, pleading for me to reconsider. She made a mistake, she said. Everyone does. But some mistakes carry weight, and this one did. I wasn't cruel, I told her. I was consistent. Brianna's desperation peaked when she showed up with a locksmith, claiming she needed access to her apartment. The building management called me first, and I shut it down. She doesn't live here anymore, I said. No locksmiths. She called screaming about her belongings, but I stayed firm. Text me a time to collect your things, Brianna. I'll be there. She did. And on Wednesday, she arrived with Chloe and a moving truck. They packed her life into boxes, her face a mask of shock as the reality sank in. She stood in the empty bedroom, her voice soft. This doesn't have to be the end, Albert. But it did. You wanted me to step my game up, I said. This is it. She left with Chloe, and I changed the locks that night. A month later, the dust settled. Brianna found a studio apartment, but her parents had to co-sign. Her credit wasn't enough. Chloe told me she's working extra hours, scrambling to cover the bills I once paid. Car, phone, insurance, gym, streaming services. Being irresistible, it turns out, doesn't pay the rent. She reached out through friends, apologizing, begging for another chance. But I was done. Her words that night at the bar weren't a mistake. They were a truth she didn't expect me to act on. She wanted me to compete, to chase her, to prove my worth. Instead, I proved my own. I saw her at the grocery store last week, clutching coupons, counting items in her cart with a worried frown. She waved, tentative, and I nodded back. Polite, but distant. No drama, no confrontation, just two people who knew each other. And that guy from the bar? Chloe said he was married, collecting numbers for sport. Brianna waited for a text that never came, while I walked away, building a life that didn't include her. The irony is beautiful. She wanted me to step my game up, to fight for her attention. Instead, I stepped away, leaving her to face the cost of her choices. Some men don't compete, they walk away, letting others figure out their own lives. Brianna's learning that now, on her own dime. And me? I'm stepping my game up every day, not by chasing someone who doesn't value me, but by valuing myself. Sometimes the best response to betrayal is to stop giving, to let the other person carry their own weight. When someone tells you to step your game up, listen. It might just mean stepping away. My parents screamed, "Get out." Now they're broke, my brother vanished, and I said, "Ask your golden boy." For as long as I can remember, my life has been a shadow cast by someone else's light. My name is Elias, and at 27, I carry the weight of a childhood spent in the margins of my own family. Growing up, I wasn't just the younger son. I was the afterthought, the one who got the leftovers while my older brother Luca basked in the glow of my parents' adoration. Luca, 5 years my senior, was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. His easy smile and effortless charm won him everything. New clothes, shiny toys, the biggest room in the house. I made do with his hand-me-downs, toys that were already broken, and a mattress that creaked with every turn. If I dared to ask for something of my own, my mother's sharp gaze would silence me. "Don't be selfish, Elias," she'd say, as if wanting a sliver of fairness was a crime. My father's words cut deeper. "Luca's the oldest. He needs more." As if being younger meant I deserved less. I was 10 years old one Christmas, my heart buzzing with hope for a soccer ball I'd begged for. Nothing extravagant, just a simple dream for a boy who loved the game. Meanwhile, Luca, at 15, wanted a mountain bike that cost more than my parents could afford. They went into debt to get it for him. That morning, I watched Luca ride circles in the yard, my mother snapping photos like he was a star. Under the tree, I found a pair of socks and a cheap plastic ball that broke after 3 kicks. When I asked why I didn't get what I wanted, my father's voice was cold. "Don't be ungrateful, Elias. We can't spend on everything." But for Luca, they always found a way. As we grew older, the divide only deepened. Luca barely scraped through high school, his grades a mess, his ambition non-existent. Yet my parents excused it all, calling him a free spirit, as if laziness was something to celebrate. I was the opposite. Studious, responsible, helping around the house. By 16, I was working part-time at a grocery store, not because I wanted to, but because our family needed it. My father, an electrician, and my mother, a homemaker who sold cakes on the side, struggled to make ends meet. But their priorities were clear. Luca came first. At 18, he got a used car. Nothing fancy, but it ran. I was still riding the bus to work. When I asked why they didn't help me, my mother's response was dismissive. "Luca needs it to get around. You can manage." By 20, I'd graduated high school with honors and landed a full-time job at a furniture factory. The work was grueling, but it paid well, and I felt proud to contribute. Yet my parents saw me as a resource to tap. "Elias, the bills are tight," my father would say. And like a fool, I handed over most of my paycheck, 70%, sometimes more. I covered electricity, water, internet, even groceries. Meanwhile, Luca, at 25, lounged at home, playing video games or hanging out with friends, contributing nothing. One night, exhausted from a long shift, I found him sprawled on the couch, smirking. "Luca, why don't you get a job?" I asked, my voice tight with frustration. He laughed, his eyes glinting with mockery. "Work? Nah, little brother. I wasn't born for that. You keep breaking your back, someone's got to pay the bills." I swallowed my rage,
knowing my parents would take his side if I pushed back.
The years wore on,
and the unfairness
unbearable.
became unbearable.
At 24, I was working
double shifts,
my body
double
aching
shifts,
while Luca
my
played
body
on a new
aching
gaming
while Luca
console.
played on a new gaming console.
My parents had bought with leftover money.
I discovered they'd upgraded our internet to the most expensive package, so Luca
when
could
I confronted
watch
my mother,
soccer in high definition. Don't be
When I
jealous,
confronted
Elias.
my mother,
Your brother
she
needs
brushed
a
me off.
distraction. Don't be jealous,
distraction
Elias.
from what?
Your brother needs
His
endless days of
distraction.
doing nothing. A distraction
At
from
26,
what?
I hit my limit.
His endless days
My
of doing
parents called me
nothing.
to the kitchen.
At
Their
26,
faces grim.
I hit my limit.
We need you to contribute
My parents
more,
called
my
me to the
father
kitchen.
said.
Their
The bills
faces
are too
grim.
high.
I
was
was
already
already
giving
giving over
over
80% of my
80%
salary.
Barely
The bills are
keeping
too
enough
high.
to buy clothes or
I was
see
already
friends.
giving over
When I pressed
80%
for
of my
details,
salary.
they dodged,
Barely
but I soon
keeping
learned the
enough to
truth.
buy clothes
Luca
or
had
see
gone on a
friends.
week-long beach
When I pressed
vacation
for
with his
details, they
friends,
dodged,
funded by
but
the
I
money
soon
I'd
learned
been
the
pouring
truth.
into the house.
Luca had
I saw
gone on
the
a
photos
week-long
online
beach
Luca
vacation
grinning
with a
his
beer in
friends,
hand while I sweated
funded
in the
by the
factory.
money I'd been pouring
Furious,
into the house.
I confronted them.
I saw the photos
Why don't you
online
make
Luca
Luca
grinning
work?
with a
I
beer in
demanded.
hand while I
He's 5
sweated
years
in the
older than
factory.
me. My
Furious,
father's face
I
turned
confronted
red.
them.
You don't tell
Why
us how
don't
to
you
raise
make
our
Luca
kids,
work?
he
I
shouted.
demanded.
Luca's
He's
different.
5 years older than me.
He's not made for work
My
like
father's
you are.
face turned
If
red.
you don't like it, you don't tell us how to raise our
words
kids,
broke something
he
inside
shouted.
me.
Luca's
My mother
different.
nodded silently.
He's not made for work
complicit
like
in
you
his
are.
cruelty.
If you
For
don't
the
like
first
it,
time,
get
I saw
out.
them clearly.
Those words
Not as
broke
parents,
something inside
but as
me.
people who'd used
My
me
mother
my whole
nodded
life.
silently.
That night, I made a choice.
Complicit in his
Fine,
cruelty.
I said.
For the
My
first
voice
time,
steady
I saw
despite
them
the storm
clearly.
in my chest.
Not as
I'll leave.
parents,
You
but
can pay
as
your own
people
bills.
who'd used me
My
my
father's
whole
anger
life.
turned to shock.
That night,
My
I made a
mother's
choice.
eyes wide with
Fine,
panic.
I
You
said.
can't do this to us,
My
she
voice
cried.
steady
We
despite
gave
the
you
storm in my
everything.
chest. I laughed
I'll leave.
bitterly. You can pay your
Everything?
own bills.
Luca's
My
hand-me-downs?
father's anger turned
And
to
a broken
shock.
mattress?
My mother's eyes
Without
wide
another
with
word,
panic.
I
You
packed
can't do this
backpack
to
with
us, she
essentials
cried.
clothes,
We gave you
documents,
everything.
the little money
I
I'd
laughed
saved and
bitterly.
left. I didn't
Everything?
look back. I
Luca's
spent the first
hand-me-down
night in a cheap motel
and a broken
then found a
mattress?
small apartment.
Without another
It was
word,
modest, but
I
it was
packed a
mine.
backpack with
For the
essentials
first time,
clothes,
I could breathe.
documents,
My parents
the little
didn't let
money
go
I'd
easily.
saved and left.
3 days
I
later,
didn't look
my
back.
mother called.
I
Her
spent the
voice
first
trembling
night in
with
a cheap
guilt-tripping
motel,
tears.
then
How
found a
could you
small
abandon us,
apartment.
Elias?
It was
We're your
modest,
family.
but it was mine.
I hung up.
For the
My
first
heart
time,
heavy but
I could
resolute.
breathe.
My father
parents
called next.
didn't let go
His tone
easily.
edged with
3
desperation.
days later,
We
my
can't
mother
make ends
called,
meet.
her voice
Come
trembling
home.
with
We'll fix
guilt-tripping
this.
tears.
I laughed
How
again.
could you abandon
Not
us,
out of joy,
Elias?
but disbelief.
We're your family.
Tell Luca to get a job.
I hung up.
I said.
My heart
He's
heavy but
32,
resolute.
not a kid.
My father
When he
called
shouted
next.
back, his
I
tone
hung up and
edged
stopped
with
answering their
desperation.
calls.
My
We
mother
can't
showed
make
up at
ends
the
meet.
factory one day.
Come home.
Her eyes red.
We'll fix
Her
this.
hair a mess.
I laughed
We're going
again.
to be evicted.
Not out of
She
joy,
pleaded.
but disbelief.
Your father's looking
Tell
for
Luca
work,
to
but
get a
it's not
job.
enough. I
You're our
said.
only hope.
He's
I felt
32,
a pang
not a
of pity.
kid.
But
When
the
he
memories
shouted
of their
back,
neglect
I
drowned
hung up
it
and
out.
stopped answering
Ask
their
Luca.
calls. I
My
said
mother
firmly,
showed up at the
He's
factory
the
one
oldest.
day.
Let
Her
him
eyes
step up.
red.
She
Her
shook her
hair a
head
mess.
as if the idea
We're
was
going to be
absurd.
evicted,
Luca
she
can't.
pleaded.
He's special.
Your father's looking for
Special.
work, but it's
The
not
word
enough.
stung.
You're
A
our
reminder
only
of
hope.
every sacrifice
I felt a
I'd
pang
made
of
for their
pity,
special son.
but the memories
I turned
of their
away,
neglect
and when I
drowned it
glanced
out.
out the window,
Ask Luca.
I saw her crying
I
as
said
she left.
firmly.
That was the
He's
last
the
time
oldest.
I saw her.
Let him step
I
up.
blocked their numbers.
She shook her head as if the
determined to
idea
build
was
a life
absurd.
free of their manipulation.
Luca can't.
For the
He's
first
special.
time, I lived for
Special.
myself.
The
My
word
salary,
stung.
once
A
drained by
reminder
my
of
family,
every sacrifice
now let me
I'd made
save,
for their
buy
special
things I
son.
wanted, and
I
enjoy
turned
simple
away,
pleasures.
and when I
made
glanced out
friends
the
at the
window,
gym,
I
played
saw her
soccer on
crying as she
weekends,
left.
and met Maya,
That was the
a
last
barista
time I
whose
saw
warm
her.
smile made
I
me feel
blocked their
seen.
numbers.
We'd talk
determined
over
to
coffee.
build a life
Her
free of
laughter
their
bombed the years
manipulation.
of neglect.
For the
My
first
life
time,
wasn't perfect,
I lived for
but it was
myself.
mine,
My
and that was
salary,
enough.
once drained by my family, now let me save, buy things I wanted, and enjoy simple pleasures. I made friends at the gym, played soccer on weekends, and met Maya, a barista whose warm smile made me feel seen. We'd talk over coffee, her laughter a balm to years of neglect. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that was enough.